Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, May 11th, 2015, and I'd like to call to order the Aurora City Council Committee of the Whole. Ms. Schweikhofer, please call the roll.
Ms. Brenner.
Present.
Ms. Grandillo.
Here.
Mr. Hatridge. Mr. Horvath.
Here.
Mr. Kovach. Mr. Cudley.
Here.
Ms. McDougald.
Present.
Mr. Vaca.
Present.
Mr. Wolf.
Here.
All right, thank you. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes for the April 27th meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are adopted. Under new business, item A is the appropriation of funds for the None for Under 21. Chief, are you going to speak to this?
Give me 1 second. I was just looking for my memo on it when you. Yeah, each year the City of Aurora sponsors a None for Under 21 event, which provides the high school seniors insight to the dangers of drinking and driving. The event's largely orchestrated and planned by our part-time DARE officer, Officer Yandriga, in conjunction with Hiram College. The funds are donated from a variety of businesses, which include Elk and Elk, the Ravenna American Legion, Troopers for Safer Ohio. But we're asking for $6,000 to be appropriated from the Fund 85 Trust to the None for Under 21 account.
Chief, that's a Portage County event?
Yes. From what I understand, though, it's gradually growing, and some agencies like in Geauga County have also attended,
Right.
and Trumbull.
Right. Mr. Paul, I believe that years ago when we first started this fund, we kind of became the collecting agency for all of the Portage County entities that contributed or donated money to it.
Yes, that is correct, and we presently have a sufficient, I think we've got about $18,000 in the fund. We originally appropriated about $9,400, and he's asking for another $6,000 to meet all the expenses of the program for this year, so that's fine.
Right. But the funds that are in there are not necessarily Aurora taxpayer money. It's
That is
monies
correct. They are donations, and they are for the specific purpose. This is a trust and agency fund, and so therefore, they aren't City of Aurora funds.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that so that people watching this would understand where the money is actually coming from. Any other comments or questions for the chief? And it's being asked that we forward this to council for action this evening. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to forward this to council for action this evening. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item B is the purchase of computer network switches. Mr. Kraus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had budgeted this year in the computer budget line, the capital line 6,074.19, to replace 2 of our 6 computer network switches. And we purchased 2 initially, and then through some discussions with Marifax realized that we should actually get the next higher model up from what we purchased to provide greater functionality uses in the future for our network. So we returned those switches, and now we're asking to purchase the next two models up for a total of $15,537.54, minus the credit of $83,9250 for a total of $71,4505. And we have the money appropriated within the budget, so we're just asking for your approval.
I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
And this would be forwarded to council's regular agenda. Any comments or questions for Mr. Kraus? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item C, D, and E are our yearly bid recommendations and purchases for various items for the service department. All 3, C, D, and E, are being asked to be forwarded to council for action this evening. Mr. True?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you know, the yearly programs, as you said, and I believe all the contracts expire around May 20th or so. On them, some of them are carryover contracts, so there will be no problem when they do expire, but that's why we ask. Item B, culvert pipe. Culvert pipe bid was held on May 5th. There was 1 bid submitted. It was we recommend to award it to Pipelines. They are the same provider we had last year. In the past, you may have remembered, we had both, somebody would bid steel pipe and somebody polyethylene plastic pipe also. But now they are, currently, this company carries both the steel and the polyethylene, and the increases are moderate. It's 1% to 2% increase for this year. And we would recommend that the, would be awarded 2 pipelines.
Okay, this is for item C, the bid recommendation for culvert pipe. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to forward this to council for action this evening. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item D is the bid recommendation for bituminous hot mix. Mr. True?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This was also, the bid was held on May 5th. There were 2 bids submitted, and after review, Shaler'sville Asphalt has been selected as the best and most responsive bidder. The amounts are listed per ton, and again, there are moderate increases, some only 50 cents a ton, and the price of oil staying down has helped us very much. Sometimes we've seen this go up $2 to $5 a ton in the years past. This year's very moderate, 50 cents on one, another $1 on another, and curb mix was only $5 increase per ton. So we do recommend on the bituminous hot mix Shaler'sville Asphalt.
And it's being asked to forward this to council for action. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Hattridge?
Thank you, Mr. Cudley. I apologize for being late. Mr. True, due to the severe weather we had January, February, March, did you have to increase your actual amount that you were requesting on the mix?
Mr. Chairman, to the council, but no, we still have the same budget numbers we use. We use about $20,000 to $25,000 for our asphalt. I expect to use those funds as we do every year and just prioritize them and rate them so we have not increased our money at all or line items in this avenue yet.
Not money, I was talking about the bulk amount of mix that you would have to use.
Mr. True?
So
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
Same answer?
No. We've not changed anything at this point. I don't think we'll have to. We'll be okay. We may not do as many full depth repairs as we have in the past. We'll focus more on the local streets and using asphalt to repair those first and not as many full depth right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? We have a motion. Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item E is a bid recommendation for crushed limestone being asked to be forwarded to council for action this evening. Do I have a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. True, I was just wondering on this, some of the prices for the other company are lower than others. Is it possible to buy some of these materials from one company and other materials from the other?
Mr. True?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilwoman, very good answer, and it's possible but not plausible. What I would say, I used to break these out completely and go with whoever was cheaper each time. What it becomes is a managing nightmare when you have guys in the field. One guy's running for 411, another guy's running for 304, another guy's running for fill sand, another one has crushed aggregate, and another one's running for number 8s. And in any given day, that can occur. We stockpile as much as we can, but many times we have to go and what happens is, even though you're under contract to do, managing that contract when you have multiple suppliers is not always practical, and it doesn't work. And what happens is, you've got guys that, okay, they know that our 411's with Ontario, and then you have other ones that know that the sand's with Shaler'sville. And at times, at any given time, they'll run out anyways. They're still pretty close, even though we don't use them. So we've been with one bidder right now, and that's why Ontario, it's the most, it's 411 and 304. So those are the largest quantities we use, and they're about 70 to 80 cents a ton cheaper. So that's what we do. We break it down in the quantities. The quantities in the line item doesn't change. It's approximately $20,000 to $35,000 a year for all items together. So we don't increase it, but that's what we've been going with, and that has worked very, very well. We were able to manage the program. They know that Ontario Stone delivers it straight to us. We don't even have to go out and pick it up anymore, so they'll deliver it from the yard. I had a call the other day. They're our current bidder. They won last year, and they had it within the same day for some sand that we needed for the water department. So, like I said, it's possible, but very hard to manage when we do that per line item. And right now, you only had 2 bidders. In the past, I've had 5 or 6. And when you did that, I could have 5 or 6 different items because of the numerous products. So,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. True, I noticed another thing about the bid was that the second company that we didn't choose had about 7 no bids on a number of different sizes, and it looks like the company that you chose, Ontario Stone, only had 2 no bids. So obviously we've got a lot more breadth by going with Ontario as well.
Mr. Chairman, to the council.
Yes.
You're correct on that, and that's why I say that the best responsive bidder, not only because of 411s and the 304, but also most responsive in that.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. True. All in favor of the motion to forward this to council for action this evening, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. The item F under new business is the Haydock Cox and Association Incorporated for Phase 2 sidewalk project. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Denise couldn't be here this evening, and I know that Mr. True also has some backup on this, but I wanted to explain this project because I've had some questions on it. To start off, we are using the connectivity study that was done in 2009 as sort of the basis for the things we're looking at for sidewalks. Now, having said that, as you know, there have been some challenges because we can't, it's not feasible to put sidewalks in certain places, or it will cost a lot more to do so. So we are trying to find areas that are useful but also feasible to sort of get the best bang for our buck. Our Phase 1 last year, we're calling it Phase 1. There were 4 phases mentioned in the connectivity study. Our phases are simply relating to the year that we're doing it in. We may have a lot more phases than the 4 phases that were mentioned in the connectivity study. That's just kind of our way of referring to it. But we are following the philosophy of the connectivity study by focusing on the town center kind of triangle area first, and then looking outward at connecting places with some of the retail areas around town. Having said that, our Phase 1 from last year, which we did some engineering on but couldn't start because there were too many issues, we provided money in the budget to do it this year, and we're in the process of working on that. That's, among other things, the north side of 82 from Bissell to 306. We're also working on South Chillicothe, various parts of it. Phase 2, for which there is also money in the budget this year, includes, as your legislative action worksheet says, the north side of East Pioneer from the library to Willard, the west side of South Chillicothe from West Pioneer to 240 South Chillicothe, and we're looking at the west side because there have been some issues with doing it on the right side in certain places. We're looking at the east side of South Chillicothe from Aurora Hudson Road to the avenues. And we're looking at the east side of South Chillicothe connecting Yorkshire Estates and Chatham Estates. Some of that comes from the connectivity study Phase 1. Some of it comes from the connectivity study Phase 2. I think the only one that wasn't specifically mentioned, if I recall, is the north side of East Pioneer from the library to Willard Road. That's in there because I personally have observed considerable walking traffic coming from the Highlands and those areas to the east there, to the center of town, and by just making that connection to Willard, we provide a lot more access. Having said that, it's still a bit challenging, but this is to ask for the engineering for this Phase 2 part of the project. We're doing both phases kind of simultaneously, and the engineer is giving us advice on the feasibility of putting these sidewalks on the east side of Chillicothe versus the west, for instance. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. DePiero?
Mr. Chairman, just to piggyback on what the mayor's talking about, in many areas, the engineering has told us that the city has right-of-way in some area, and some areas we don't have a right-of-way. Where we don't have a right-of-way, it becomes more difficult in that my office has to send out easement agreements. We've been working on those for 2 or 3 months, a lot of back and forth with the property owners, most of which have been receptive. But there's a lot of back and forth. They get their attorneys involved to review. I don't want to say that's held things up, but it's slowed things down considerably. We expect that'll be the same with Phase 2. There'll be areas, because of the configuration of our roads and our right-of-way, that we'll have to go outside the right-of-way and we'll need easements. So I know we're committed to continue to move it forward, but that is one of the challenges that we run into.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the mayor, I just wanted to say thank you, especially for the section from on East Pioneer from the library to Willard Road. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of foot traffic there, a significant amount from the neighborhood I'm living in, a significant amount from the Highlands. Those folks are really going to appreciate the safety that will be afforded by a sidewalk. And then also the common sense section that connects Chatham and Yorkshire Estates, given that there's already sidewalk right there that comes right up to the shopping center. I very much appreciate you connecting all those neighborhoods so that people can walk down there if they want. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Ms. Barner?
Thank you, Councilmember Cudley, and I agree with Councilmember Mr. Wolf as well, Mayor. You know, I've been proactive and a huge advocate of connectivity. I think this is an outstanding thing to do for the city. The sooner the better. And obviously, these first phase, second phase is terrific. Ultimately, I'd love to see all the other phases coming on, so most of the city is connected. So you will definitely get my support in any shape and form to connect this city, and I know you'll have a lot of support from the residents of this community too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the mayor, I just had a question. Can we piecemeal this as soon as we're legally able to get one spot? Or do we have to wait for all of the easements to come through and do it at one time?
Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. McDougall, we're doing as much of it at one time as we can. For instance, I don't think we quite have all of the north side of 82 documents in hand, but we're about ready to bid that because we have general agreement and we know they'll be forthcoming. We'll have to wait on some of the rest of it because we're actually going to bid the actual paving, the installation of the sidewalks. This is for engineering. So there's still a lot of engineering that we have to do in some of these areas before we actually put it out for bid.
Excuse me, one more.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering, if you have all the easements and agreement on a section, will you do that section, or are you going to wait for several sections and then do it all at one time?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. McDougall, that's what I just said. We're going to do as much as we can when we have the documents in hand. So we're going to do 82 pretty quickly, even though we're not ready to bid South Chillicothe, for instance.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. True, I would also assume that, based on how much is ready to go to bid it out, it would be more cost effective if we have a larger quantity of sidewalk to put in and if we're doing just small segments of it at any given time.
Mr. Chairman, you are correct. That's what we're trying to do. We're essentially ready to go on phase one. Like I said, we don't have all the easement documents signed, but we were getting ready to bid that anyways. Therefore, we'll hopefully get them signed by the time we actually award it to the contractor. Because when a contractor's moving forms, picking up, that additional charge for coming out there and setting up is the biggest charge of the contract. So he can put his forms down, pave a couple, or concrete a couple 100, 200, 300 feet a day, then pick them up, move them, unset them, set them down the street. So yes, that's what we intend to do, and we'll move forward as quickly as possible.
Right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Hattridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll address this question to Mr. Wolf, due to the fact you live in Eldridge. Is there, I'm trying to remember in my mind, picture in my mind, is there a path or is there a trail coming off Eldridge down to Willard?
There's an easement. The city has an easement, the Willard Road easement that runs all the way down. People use it all the time. It's not so worn that the grass is burned out or anything else, but,
I didn't think about that.
well, 4th of July, I mean, certain times of the year, especially when there are events up at the library, you'll see moms pushing strollers up through, and everybody knows just to come up through that way and hit Willard. And that's where it gets hairy, right? So you can cross over all those. You're walking through basically side yards the whole way up until you get to Pine. That's why this is so important.
Right.
So,
Well, that's, yeah.
yeah.
But it's not quote-unquote a true path. It's a path
No.
that's been made throughout the years.
Yeah,
Cut
yeah.
through.
Well, it is.
It's a true easement. It's a Willard Road easement, but it's not. There's no gravel down or anything like that. But yeah, it's a path. Everybody knows that they use it, and so there has been gravel in the past in some sections. There's gravel left over from years gone by, but a lot of it, there's a lot of water issues. So as you go down from street to street, the topography just causes a lot of water issues, and eventually that gravel gets packed down and compacted down in. So there are certain areas that's a lot more visible than others, but everybody knows where it is. There's crosswalks in the street that identify where the pedestrian crossings are, where people can come through. So.
Okay, then, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
to the mayor, or to Mr. True, whoever wants to answer, if that is in fact true, which it is, and we have easement there right now, could we not during this project put grindings down or something like that to make this a viable path?
Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hattridge, I was chomping at the bit to answer that question before you asked it. We've looked at that. It's problematic for a variety of reasons. It literally goes through current yards.
Oh.
And there would be, even though we have an easement, there would probably be some considerable displacements to actually try to pave it. So for right now, we decided, hey, use it the way it is. It's probably more trouble than it's worth right now to, try to make it more formal.
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wolf?
Yeah, sorry, just to follow up on what the mayor's hit it dead on. There are a lot of driveways that run up there, and there's an issue of safety if you put grindings down and kids come roaring through on their bikes. Right now, kids know they basically walk their bikes through the grass and they ride down the driveways, across the street, right? So, yeah, she's exactly correct. It's best used in the way it is right now. Down the road, who knows what we'll see, but for right now, everybody knows where it is, everybody walks through the grass. And it's kind of nice because there are people that have gardens along the side and everything
Right,
else. So.
yeah. Okay, thanks, Hat.
All right, thank you. We have a motion, yes? All right, we need a motion to forward this to council for action this evening. We have a move and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Final item of new business is item G, access easement to Dominion East Ohio Gas. Mr. DePiero.
Mr. President, members of the council, our office was contacted by Dominion East Ohio Gas a couple of months ago. Currently, the city, this is with regard to property on Old Mill Road that the city owns. Dominion East Ohio has an existing utility easement across that property that they've had there for years, and that easement exists. They, because of advancement in technology and some of the advancement in their maintenance techniques, they are going to be installing some maintenance above-ground valves. I have a picture of it here. I can pass it around just so you know what we're looking at. Above-ground valves, a valve to be able to access and repair their easement or their utility line from time to time. There currently is a gravel road that runs off of Old Mill Road back to the area that intersects with the utility easement and where the valve will be installed. This easement merely will give them access to use that road for maintenance and for repair and to install the valves. That's basically what this is. their ongoing maintenance, et cetera. But because there's an existing driveway here, it just allows them to use that for ingress, egress, maintenance, and anything they need to do with that valve. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in addition, they're asking for, because they want to get the project going, they're asking for us to pass it quickly.
Right. Mr. Vaca.
Thank you. Mr. Law Director, is this high pressure?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, well, I'm looking at that, and some of these yahoos with four-wheel drives might just want to take a ride down there and hit it.
Yeah, I mean, can I address that?
And if it's a high-pressure line, we don't need that kind of.
Like to see a picture of it?
Mr. President, I'm glad you asked that, because in addition to that valve, there will be a fence around it. It will be fenced. Because there's a conservation easement on the property, we actually had to talk with the holder of the conservation easement, the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, and they're okay with the fencing and the valve being put there. But it's out of sight. You can't see it from the road. But there is a fence. I think I have a picture of it here. I'll send it over there as well. But thanks for the question.
Yeah, well, that would be my concern, because a fence like this is not gonna stop a truck. I would rather see a guardrail go around it, just with the fence.
Out of order, but this looks like a high pressure pipe to me.
Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a reason they can't bury these valves, the same way that we bury our water lines? And, I mean, all the rest of the gas lines around the city are buried. Even if they were just to construct a cement box in the ground and drop I'm asking the wrong.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy. You're asking
Mr. True?
Mr. Chairman, yes, they are high pressure. Remember, all gas lines basically are high pressure. You have the diaphragms and the gas reducer valves all coming in to reduce your pressure before it comes in your house. So it's just a significant how high pressure it is. It's pretty safe. All these high pressure valves and everything else, even if they're busted, they go off automatically. They put safety flappers in to double check valves that they put in basically. If somebody even were to hit it and so forth, the other ends would both shut immediately. So they're very much safety, but I'm sure if we asked about a guardrail or something like that, they may be, very amenable to something like that. But I think they want it above ground because they plan on doing a lot of work in the near future for both lines in our community and in Twinsburg, so they can at least shut the gas off here and control it much easier instead of doing it under pressure, therefore the pressure's shut off.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Horvat?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cudley. I have a question for the law director.
Yes, sir.
Mr. DePiero, is this a temporary easement or is this going to be permanent?
It's a permanent easement.
Permanent? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Is it going to say that in here somewhere, or will it?
I think it indicates that it's perpetual in nature.
Okay, I
somewhere.
didn't see that. Okay.
It's, in successors, this easement for access road is perpetual and shall extend to and be binding upon the grantor and grantees, their heirs, successors, and assigns. The last paragraph?
Oh, okay, thanks. Thank you.
Ms. Partner?
Yes, thank you, Councilman Cudley, and I believe this would go to Mr. DePiero as well. The picture that you sent us, this is obviously a different one, and I think the fencing obviously looks sufficient. I'm assuming there's also probably signs for anybody who would go near it, to obviously warning signs or what have you, no trespassing along that line. In addition, has there ever been a problem with the way this fencing is in the past, in a situation that we would need to do above and beyond of what you're requesting to do?
Mr. DePiero?
Mr. Cudley, Councilwoman, I will take that suggestion and ask them if they've not already planning on posting. This is an example, of course, of what
Sure.
they'll do. We can request them to post signs. I can't answer whether there's been any issues with this type of setup. My assumption is that if there was, because they are so heavily regulated by the PUCO, that setups like this have to be approved. I'm assuming that that it's not been an issue.
Mm-hmm. They've already done their research with it. Okay, thank you, that's all the questions I have
All
about
right,
it.
thank you. Mr. Hattridge?
The only question I have, Mr. DePiero, is do you Can you explain exactly where this is located? I know it's off Old Mill. Is it right before the wetlands on the right-hand side going down?
Yes.
Past the old house, last house?
I believe so. Mr. True?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It's also the old Pinnock property, if you remember, where we got the old hangar from and so forth. They used to land planes back there and so forth. It's a Pinnock property that runs all the way through to 82 off of Old Mill. It's a
Okay,
gravel
yeah,
road back there.
okay.
Next to the wetlands there.
I got it. Isn't that also the turnaround for the buses too?
That's right next to that.
Next to that, okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr.
Thank you,
Baca?
True.
This is a FYI, if you realize going out 82 toward Manaway, there's gas lines all along that strip that stick up in the air, and this is basically the same thing, only smaller. The thing about the ones in Manaway, cars seem to keep hitting them all the time. We just had one about 2 months ago or 3 months ago that took out a pole and the cop. So that's why my concern was if you get these people running around on four-wheel drives, they decide to come in there and not see it, so. Because that's a bigger pipe than the ones out on 82.
All right, thank you. So we need a motion to forward this to council for action this evening.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes. And that brings us to the end of our agenda for this meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.